Now, to begin with, let me recite just a quote of a Holy Farman with our beloved Imam. He says, Salawat, Allahumma salli
Allahumma salli ala
ala
Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
On 22nd of November 1967 in Mumbai, our beloved Imam said that do not forget that our branch of Islam is an esoteric branch of Islam. Esoteric means that which is written is there, but the meaning is not there to everyone. It is there to those who are part of our Jamaat, unquote. Please say Salwa. Allahumma salli ala. I am pointing out this farman because I find it necessary and important always to remember that when we are discussing matters of our tariqah in Islam, it has a spiritual significance. And it is that spiritual significance that we are trying and constantly attempting to define and to understand based on the guidance of the Imam. I underline that. We cannot define anything unless it is defined by the Imam for our tariqah practices. Just to bring to your notice a little difference. Do you know when scholars speak to each other about a concept, they may define it in their own way, they may define it into another way, they can come together, they can differ with each other, they may not agree with the concept, they may come back with all kinds of philosophical and other forms of arguments. And at the scholarly level, it is a perfectly acceptable mode and method of inquiry. I am not presenting what I am doing now at a scholarly level. I am merely presenting to you an understanding of how our foundational principle of practice, based on the Imam's guidance, which is not a matter of debate, as an Imam's guidance to the Jamaat for the practice of the faith is absolute. Only the Imam tells us whether what meaning applies at which time, and only the Imam defines it at a particular time, and only the Imam can redefine it at his pleasure and at his behest. So based on the general understanding of the practice of our faith, I hope that what I'm presenting to you today will hopefully come together. A lot of people not long ago have asked me and constantly asking this relationship that exists between when Mola Bapa says to us that the faith, that the intellect is another facet of the faith. What does that mean? What is some meanings behind that? What is the meaning of faith? And is faith defined in some certain ways that we can be understanding besides philosophical and other forms of debate about faith? What about the concept of imamat? How is it related to faith and to the intellect? And eventually, the notion of amanat or trust. What is that? Because that word appears in the fifth part of our dua, in a verse of the Quran, Surah Anfal, and we recite it in our dua with the word amanatikun. So what is that word, and how are all these concepts related? So here is an attempt in front of you in this image that I have produced, and I am calling this relationship the cosmic prism of the intellect. And you will see why it is a prism somewhere along my presentation. So let me begin first of all with, you see where there is the brilliant point at the apex of this pyramid that I call divine intellect. The notion of the divine intellect is the notion of the nur of Hazar Imam. In other words, everything that exists in creation, I repeat, everything that exists in creation, the creation itself, whether it is the material creation or whether it is the spiritual creation, doesn't matter. Whether it is the seven heavens and the seven earths that is mentioned in the Holy Quran, whether it is the Das Asman mentioned in the Holy Ginans, whether it is the 14 cosmic spheres mentioned in the Ginans, all of these, in whichever way you would like to portray or understand it, as we say, all of these have a different cosmological meaning. All of this, the Lord of the totality of the creation is Hazar Imam himself. It is the Nur of Mola Bapa himself. That is the foundation, first of all. And you can see from that brilliant point at the apex of the pyramid, it is from that point onwards, everything in the totality of creation is sustained and it is illuminated. Even when you think about the sun as a star, the light that the sun gives, the light of the stars, the light that comes from the millions of galaxies that exist in our cosmos and other universes that we don't even know. All of these lights are nothing, absolutely nothing, but one little grain of sand in the nur of the Holy Imam. So try to understand that the whole of creation is sustained by this nur of the Imam. And we are so fortunate that our beloved Imam explains to us this relationship in an amazingly logical, intellectual way that our logic, our reason, our intellect can be illuminated by his nur, and we can profit from it in our physical life and in our spiritual life. So if you look at this prism, the first segment right at the top, it says intellect, it says akal. How does our faith relate to this notion of akal? Now, before I continue, I have to say this to you. Dozens and dozens of people have sent me messages to say that, can you please not use complicated philosophical, metaphysical concepts to explain things, because we like to have a simple explanation of things. And I heartily agreed with them, but this is not an academic presentation. So I hope you will bear with me as I'm dialoguing with you. I am simply having a conversation with you and not having many, many different slides about many things. But I do have many slides just to show you. If you, perhaps later on, this slide that I'm showing you is the end of a large number of slides. But if time is there, maybe I will go through them. But for now, this is the crux. This is the essence. This is the result. So how do we define intellect? The word intellect, as you already know, in Arabic, we say aql. But we use that word also in the Indian languages, basically to refer to reason, understanding, analysis, thinking. But the word intellect has a very specific understanding and meaning. And what do we mean by that? The word intellect or akal is also linked to not only to these various words of understanding and reason, but the notion of intellect in Islam is that which enables the human being to connect and to link and associate himself with the divine. So if I said to you, what part of your existence or being can you relate with, and it can relate to the divine intellect or to the nur of the Imam. And that part of our being, we call it intellect. The intellect as given to us by Mawla, Remember, there is a farman of Imam Sultan Muhammad alayhi salam, in which our beloved Imam says, every human being's intellect is rooted in the Imam's nur or the Imam's intellect. Amazing understanding. Not just ours, every human being. You also remember, while we are talking about farmans, that Maulana Hazrat Imam says in a Pakistan farman that what makes the human being Allah's greatest creation? He says nothing but the intellect. The intellect is what makes the human being superior than all other creation. That in itself requires some inquiry. But the concept of intellect is that which, to put it very simply, is that which enables a human being to be able to tell and to discern, to be able to tell things apart between what is right and what is wrong. Or we say what is absolute and what is relative, what is permanent and what is changing. According to Islam, the human being can know his creator only through the intellect. And of course, that raises the question, if the intellect is the connecting point, then that intellect must have certain qualities that enables that intellect to make that connection. Do you remember Maulana Hazrat Imam's speech, the foundation of the Aga Khan University, when he said, it is the divine intellect that transcends but informs the human intellect. Think about this. And he went on explaining many things about when the man of faith doesn't use intellect, then he falls into a different category. But this notion of intellect is so important in Islam and specifically in our tariqah that the Imam has repeatedly explained to us that the intellect is another facet of the faith. And the faith needs to be understood in its own right context. So if the intellect is the ability given by the Creator to its creatures in order that the creation can enable themselves to know what is right and what is wrong, because it is obvious that if you follow something that is wrong, it is going to create wrong and negative results. If you follow something that is right, by this definition, obviously there will be whatever those blessings are that will bring because of the righteousness of what you do. And of course, one of the fundamental aspects of this righteousness is walking or treading on the right path. If you have to choose between the wrong path and the right path or the correct path, what will enable you to do that? It is the intellect. So, and that path, as you know, we say it is Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path. And how many blessings Mola Bapa gave us during the Diamond Jubilee and other occasions about being on Sirat al-Mustaqim. Now tonight I am not addressing the concept of Sirat al-Mustaqim. I will do that in one of the nearest presentation. But I just want to make the connection today that the intellect is fundamental, primordial, in order that we understand even the concept of Sirat al-Mustaqim, which inshallah, with Mawla's blessing, we will understand what the connections are with other paths. So just to briefly summarize, the intellect is the ability to be able to know between the right and the wrong. The intellect is the ability, it is the divine faculty given to the human being that connects the human being to the nur, that connects to the divine light, that connects to Mola Bapa himself, that connects to the nur of Allah himself. That is the basis of what intellect exists, which other species do not have. You know, just for your understanding, if you look at the word religion in English language, that word religion comes from the Latin religio. And religio in Latin means that which ties or that which binds. Bind to what? And tie to what? That which binds you to your Creator, your God. That which ties you to the divine intellect. That which binds you to God Almighty. Isn't that really what religion does? I think most religions would be agreeable to that definition. But look at the definition. If that is the definition of the word religion, then in the same manner, one of the meanings of the word akal is also to tie. That which ties you to the nur. So you can imagine how fundamentally important it is that we never forget this concept. And in every aspect of our understanding the faith, in every aspect of the practice of the faith, in every aspect of us seeking to analyze our practices and seek to understand them, that we do it with this understanding that the intellect is the point of illumination for the human being and the point of connection and the point that is keeping the human being in this spiritual balance in din and dunya also, in the way in which the Imam has explained to us, and I will have to say about this something more a little later. Let us now turn to the second segment of this prism that we call Iman or faith. There are thousands of books and papers and arguments that have been brought about what exactly is faith. And I'm sure if you ask many different people, there'll be many different understanding, many different reactions, many different rendering of the meaning. And you know, it is perfectly okay for people to have their own definition and to be happy about it and to have a level of satisfaction in what people understand by the word faith at their personal level. But what does the faith means in the context of the practice of our own Ismaili Tariqah? To put it simply, in the Ismaili Tariqah, the Holy Imam and the Holy Peers, don't forget, the Imam Mola Bapa himself is the 49th Imam and the 50th Peer. He is both. So I'm giving you both of these teachings. Faith, according to the teachings of our holy peers, faith is nothing but love in the heart for the Imam. Please say Salwa. I repeat, faith is nothing but love in the heart for the Imam. And one might say, wow, is that it? Yes, it's at it. You can look at this concept in a multiple faceted way, but faith is nothing but love for the Imam in the heart. And of course, we have to say to ourselves, if love is nothing but faith in the heart for the Imam, then is this concept of love what people ordinarily say? Because I can teach my parent that say, I love you, Maula. Maula Bapa, I love you. Hazar Imam, I love you very much. And we can generate our own thinking and our own feelings and our own way of expressing it. And that's okay too. That's perfectly all right. Every murid, every human being has that freedom to express that ability and that means within themselves. But I say to you, I say to you all, but you know, in the Tariqah, we have certain principles that gives foundation to this faith. And this is why the image that you are seeing is like a pyramid, that I call it a prism. And you can see here, just going back to the top section, the section of the intellect. If you can see my cursor, can you see my cursor? So this section, which is the section of Akal, the top section of the pyramid, the intellect, you can see that it is resting. It is resting on the second segment, which is faith. So in a way, you can say, what is the foundation of faith? Faith is founded, the foundation of the intellect, it is founded on faith. So faith here, you can see it's supporting the intellect. Now, why is that important? Because you see, in many of the settings in Western system, and I'm talking about, for example, in Western philosophy in particular, many Western philosophers and many people taking philosophy courses in universities and colleges and schools, many times you will see that in the philosophical text they are using, they define faith as something that is irrational and intellect something that is rational. So they consider faith that is irrational. Is that an answer that Islam gives? No. And by the way, if you're interested, there is a very famous book that is still being used today. It's by a British philosopher, Alfred J. Ayer. And the name of that book is called Language, Truth, and Logic. And if you read that book, and you take that book like in a philosophy course, you are probably going to start having some doubt about matters of faith as spoken in religions, because that book basically tears down this whole idea of faith is all about. Now, I will be giving a lecture eventually at some point where I want to explain deeper this notion about language, truth, and logic, and how, for example, we see it and we perceive it in Islam, and particularly how we see in our own tariqah. But here you can see the faith is supporting the triangle or the pyramid of the intellect. So one of the things that I want to mention here, just going back to the intellect because it has relationship to this faith, is first of all to say that did you know that, for example, in the Quran, there are many expressions related to akal and many expressions related to the intellect. And there is one expression that says, Wallah yakilun. That is, those whose intellect is malfunctioning. This is such an important concept. And I always say to university students when I have an occasion to discuss and to debate with them, and I said, what's the difference between a human being who says, I have faith, and I'm speaking in general terms, and a human being says, no, I don't have faith. So the one who has faith says, well, I have faith, I believe in the existence of God. As opposed to another person who might say, well, I don't have faith, I don't believe in a God, God does not exist, or maybe if he exists and we cannot know him. So this is the debate between the atheists and the agnostics and all other brands of people within that whole thing. Now, within certain tradition, for example, in the Christian tradition, you will often hear that people who do not have faith, who have lost faith, what's wrong with them? And it is said in the Christian tradition that the loss of faith is because the devil, Satan, Azazel, the devil has come and the devil has corrupted your will by which you are choosing the wrong thing, and by the corruption of the devil, you have lost your faith. So why don't you have faith in God? Oh, that's because the devil has corrupted me. Do you think Islam says that? Do you think we blame the devil? We blame, uh, Azazel, or we blame Iblis to say he is the one who misled me? No, absolutely no. In Islam, it is very clear. Islam says the loss of faith is equated to the malfunction of the intellect. Can you imagine that? When they say the akal is malfunctioning, that's the reason why you don't have faith. So today, I hope I can respond to this question. Why would the akal why would the akal not function properly? What is there a malfunction? And that's coming up just in a few minutes. So this is so significant that in the Quran it is said the malfunction of the intellect is what causes a person to lose faith. And therefore we must always make sure by way of our practice, especially us in our tariqah, that this intellect functions properly. And for it to function properly, there are certain criteria that enables it to function properly. So coming back to faith, that's why faith is the one that supports the intellect, or the intellect rests upon the structure of the faith. So you can see these two things. Faith supports the intellect. What else is faith? Well, as I've already said to you, that the simplest explanation and the most practical and the most comprehensible one is to say faith or iman is nothing more than love for the imam in the heart. Now, this notion of love in the heart for the imam, love and devotion for the imam, it's called walayat. There are two terms. One is vilayat with an I here, and the other one is with an A as I put here, walayat. So this walaya, what does that mean? Walaya is a term that is used in Shia Islam and also used in our own tariqah. It means love and devotion to the Imam of the time. Walaya means that a follower of the Imam says to the Imam, it says, Hazar Imam, I accept your spiritual authority upon me in all my material things and all my spiritual things. In other words, I perform an oath with the Imam and say, Hazar Imam, I submit to you, and in that act of submission, I give you my oath of allegiance, and I say to you as my Imam that everything that I have, physically and spiritually, is all submitted to you, and I, as a follower of you, I accept your guidance to guide me spiritually and to guide me materially, and I accept unconditionally the guidance that you, as my Imam, will be giving it to me. And I submit to that guidance. In simple terms, that is the concept of Valaya. You can see now why this concept of Valaya here, again, if you can see my cursor, Imamat supports Imam and Imam supports Akal. So there is a relationship here. And of course, the concept of Imamat It's a very rich concept. And that concept has been very well defined in our esoteric scripture, in the esoteric of understanding. And simply put, as a point of connection, imamat or walayat is the acceptance, in addition to what I have said, is the acceptance that Allah's nur is Imam's nur. And Imam's nur is Allah's nur. Now, just to make a point of connection between the notion of faith and imamat or walayat, as I have defined by the authority of our holy peers, that faith means nothing more than love in the heart for the Imam. And you have seen the meaning of walayat. That means love and devotion for the Imam, unconditionally. So you can see how these two things are related. If faith is nothing but love in the heart of the believer for the Imam, then that is obviously the notion of walayat for the Imam. Now, why is it that we are saying that when we speak about faith, it is nothing but love in the heart for the Imam? Because if you make the connection between Iman and Imamat and Walayat, love for the Imam in the heart is nothing more than love for Allah in the heart. Love for Allah is love for Imam. Love for Hazrat Imam is love for Allah. There is not a single atom of difference. So if you say that I love my Imam, is no different than when a murid says, I love Allah Almighty. And when we say, I love Allah Almighty, then there is no difference in the esoteric to say, I love my Imam. There is no difference whatsoever. None. Not one atom of difference. They are completely equal. This is a perfect equation. And when we have this notion of love, and we understand what it is, and today I'm only giving you a kind of a snapshot, if you like, of this whole concept, but at the same time, I'm seeking that you make this connection with the intellect, and you will see it in a second. So, in expressing our love for the Imam, which is love for Allah Himself, you know, we have to ask ourselves the most logical and the most analytical question. And that is, what is the proof? I mean, I can say to you, I love my Imam. I love Allah. My parrot can tell you the same thing. But what is the proof? Does my parrot have more love than me? Do I have more love than my parrot? The question is, it's a logical question. If someone should say to you, what is the proof that you say that you love your Imam, that you love Allah Himself? There has to be a proof, without which it would not mean anything but sweet words. And Mullah bless you if you have sweet words. Nothing wrong with that. They are sweet words. But everything we say in the faith has to have a foundation. Just as you look at this pyramid, the intellect is founded upon faith. The foundation of faith is imamat. And now the whole understanding of walayat is founded on this notion of amanat, trust. And what is that? If I had 5 seconds to finish this discussion, I would tell you this word trust and amanat means your dasant. I repeat, this word trust and amanat means dasant. In the Holy Quran, the concept of dasant is defined by three words: Ushr Allah, Khums, and Zakat. These three principles brought together in Ismaili Tariqa we call Dasand or Mali Wajbat. Now for many people it is somewhat of a discovery or a revelation to say, wow, how does Dasand becomes the actual foundation? Because now when you look at this whole pyramid, this whole prism, you can see the song or Mali Wajbat, which is the base of this prism or pyramid. It supports the concept of walayat or imamah. In turn, it supports faith or iman. In turn, it supports akal or intellect, which eventually makes the link with the divine intellect, which is the nur of Allah, which is Mola Bapa himself. Now, let me say a few words about this concept of amanat, because it is so fundamentally important. Again, I am not referring to any uh, specific reference material. I have it somewhere here, but because I've been asked to have a dialogue, so I'm going to speak to you about it in a very simple, straightforward dialogue later on in a future session. And in fact, the people who are participating in the Anantakaro, there are literally dozens and dozens of references about Dasand and Amanat into this Anantakaro Ginan, as it is in many of the Ginans and Farmans of the Imam. So let me, for the time that we have, perhaps paraphrase it to you in very short, direct, without any confusion of uh, technical terminology. So the first thing I want to say to you about the song in this context, the concept of the song. Now, before I say anything more, I want you to understand the meaning of the word trust as amanat, okay, which is trust. And I will define it in a moment. But in order for us to understand why the song is the foundation of this prism and why the song is the principle of every single religion on the face of this earth, it has always been, it is now, and will always be. There is not a single faith. There is not a single religion on the face of this planet that does not have the song in one form or the other. So I don't want people to be suddenly surprised to say, oh my God, how can we be speaking about the song? Yes, we must, because look at this prism. It's the foundation. Many of you over time had heard the farmans of the Holy Imam. It was a message from the Holy Imam to the Jamaat to say that the song is the foundation of faith, and without the song, there is no validity of religion or prayer even for 2 minutes. In other words, when there is no dasan, then there is nothing. So before I continue, just to emphasize that point, imagine you remove this foundation of amanat. Just remove it. What happens? The whole pyramid collapses. Walayat collapses, meaning your faith, your love, devotion for the Imam becomes non-existent. Then your mention of the faith, which supports the intellect, it collapses. And then the intellect, which is linked to the divine intellect, it collapses right to the bottom. Is a total collapse. In order to avoid that, we must frame this in the right perspective, making sure we understand what this amanat and this dasan is. So the first point is this. There are many points, but I'll take as many as I can. The first thing to know about dasan has existed before when creation came into existence. When there was no earth, there was no sun, there was no planets, there was no Milky Way galaxy, there was no universe that existed. We are talking about the pre-existence time, time before creation, the time that is called pre-creation, a time which is considered a, a period that is known as when there was a material void, but there was spiritual fullness. In technical term, is called sunkar. That period of existence, when it was there, the first law that God established was the law of the sun. I want to make that abundantly clear, that this is not something that has come 100 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 1,000,000 years back. It has come before the time of creation. So according to today's understanding, suppose, for example, if you believe that the universe is 13.2 or 13.5 billion years old, suppose, then the law of the sun was in existence before the creation of this universe. Now you might wonder, how can that law be in existence? Who was there to give and submit the sun? This is an amazing concept, an amazing, amazing spiritual understanding that our holy faith gives to the murid, so that we may be completely solid in our foundation as to what the sun actually means and why it is the foundation of every faith, and most certainly the foundation in our tariqah and in Islam. So, in the time of pre-creation, again, I'm giving you the story in a very short, simple way. Okay? And how does that story begin? This narrative begins with the fact that Mawla in his spiritual form as the Noor. Remember, the Noor is always there, has always existed, it is there now, and will always exist and will continue to exist till the end of time and beyond. And it has always been there. Now, from the Noor, from his Noor, Mawla Bapa created another light from his Noor. And that light that he created was the prophetic light. It's called Noor and Nabuwat. Now, just to give you a reference, you remember when Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam, on November 7th, 1885, when he assumed the holy throne of Imamat at the age of 8, he said to the Jamaat, this is only one reference, there are of course hundreds. He says to the Jamaat, "Oh Jamaat, don't consider me small. Do not consider me small. Though I'm small in age, but I am the descendant of Hazrat Maulana Murtaza Ali." And he says, "I am the Noor of Allah, I am the Noor of Murtaza Ali, and I am the Noor of Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam." And the Imam says, both of these Noor together are present before you. And because of this, there is the notion of Ya Ali and Ya Muhammad. So Ya Muhammad is a prophetic Noor that comes from the Noor of Ali. That's why there is a hadith Qudusi, that says, "O Muhammad, had it not been for you, we would not have brought creation into existence. And had it not been for Ali, we would not have created you." Now, what's the point of all of this? To tell you. The point is this, that the Noor of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is a concept to study in the domain of mystical prophetology, but that is the science of what I'm speaking about. The Noor of Prophet Muhammad is where creation came into existence. So Maula Ali said to the Holy Prophet at that time, and said to the Prophet in his spiritual form, I command you to bring creation into existence. That's why this hadith says, O Muhammad, had it not been for you, we would not have brought creation into existence. Meaning, the whole of creation has come from the nur of Prophet Muhammad, and the nur of Prophet Muhammad, according to this hadith, has come from the nur of Maula Ali, the nur of Maula Bapa himself. Please say Salawat. Now, it was necessary for me to explain this because the question is, who gave the song in pre-creation time? So the narrative in a sense continues. Prophet Muhammad brought the whole creation into existence, and guess what? Guess what? That whole creation came into existence, but it was unstable. It was unstable. And at any moment, that creation could collapse. So, Prophet Muhammad went back to Maula Ali and said, Lord, I brought creation into existence, but I can't sustain it. I can't maintain it. We need you, Lord. We need you, Maula, to sustain this creation. Otherwise, it will collapse. Without you, Lord, this creation cannot exist. So Maula Ali says to the Holy Prophet in their spiritual form that if you want me to sustain, maintain, and vitalize this creation, then the law of that sustaining, maintaining, that guarantee is the sound. So give the sound, submit the sound. And the Holy Prophet, what did he do? How did he give the sound? Remember, this is the time pre-creation. There is no material things. And most people today, well, all people today, of course, that the whole notion of the song is in the way that we understand it. And I'll come to that a little later. So the Holy Prophet, as the source of universal creation, was asked to submit the song in the pre-creation time. And what happened? The Holy Prophet went to Maula Ali and he prostrated. I repeat, he prostrated to the Holy Imam, and prostrated by meaning that Maula has Imam, this is my dasand. So the first dasand was the act of prostration by the Holy Prophet to Maulana Murtaza Ali alayhi salam in pre-cosmic creation time. This very act of submission, this very act of prostration was the dasand of that time. And guess what? Where do you think the notion of prostration enters into religious practice? There. That is the root. What do you think that means? It means the believers are reminded every time they go into prostration that that is the condition that you have accepted, that your Lord, your sustainer, your maintainer, the Imam will be with you. Every breath, every step in all that you do, because you are submitting your dasand. The act of prostration is your symbolic recognition and actually a total submission and recognition, because remember, the act of prostration is body, mind, and spirit. In that intention, having said that, this act of prostration becomes the first dasand. This is the very act of prostration that Allah in the Quran says to all the angels that I have created Adam and I am ordering you to prostrate before Adam. Do you understand this symbol? Do you understand the meaning of this? This Adam that Allah created, it was the body of Adam made of earth, and according to the Quran, Allah himself with his own hands took earth, clay, and made the body of Adam made of earth. Hence we say this is made of clay. The physical body is made of clay. And then what happened? Allah took his nur and entered the body of Adam. Just as the nur is in the body of Maula Bapa today. Please say salwa. I hope you can follow my logic and understanding. Allah created his own body. Look, let's not beat around the bush, okay? I'm telling you things in a straightforward manner so there cannot be any confusion and any philosophical debate about the pleroma and the drama that happened and all of that. It's true, it did, but take it from me in that simplest, direct sense. Allah made this body and he put his nur into this body. And I'll give you the proof in a second. And then he said, prostrate. Whom do you think the angels were prostrating to? It was the same Allah that was in his Nurani form, meaning in the form of light, that is now the same Allah that is inside the body of Adam. And all angels prostrated. Now remember one thing, angels are created from the light, from the nur of Maula Bapa himself. All angels, all the billions and billions and billions of angels that exist, they are created from the nur of Hazar Imam. And inshallah, in near future, I mean, it depends upon you, I will hopefully, if you like, give a full lecture on the notion of angelology in the Quran and how we see it in our tariqah. The whole notion of angels. So all these angels, even before the time of Adam, they were ordered, understand this, not to prostrate or submit to anyone but God. All angels were ordered by God never, ever, ever, ever to prostrate or submit themselves to anyone but himself. This is in the Quran. So what happened? Suddenly, God says to these angels, prostrate to Adam. You might say, am I missing anything? No, you're not. It is the same God, the same Allah, the same Nur that came into Adam. Now remember, I am not speaking about Adam the first man, just to be so that you are clear about this. I am not speaking about Adam the first prophet. I am not even speaking about the thousands of Adams that came before that time. This is the divine form that Allah himself decided to assume. And in this context, all angels prostrated themselves to that Adam. So whom were they prostrating to? They were prostrating to the nur of Allah that was in Adam. Because they were ordered not ever, ever to prostrate or submit to anyone. So even if you decide simply to conduct this thing in a logical form, you will say it is a divine law. God said, don't prostrate to anybody. Then he says, prostrate to Adam. Then who Adam must be? God did not change his law. He did not change his farman, so to speak. All angels submitted. Now, make the meaning. Connect the dots. They submitted. Meaning, they gave the song. like the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in pre-creation time gave the first the sound. So they gave the sound. The act of prostration was that the sound. And guess what? One angel amongst others. Just to cut the story short, if you have a request, I'm happy at some future date to take this whole history about Adam and Azazel and give you a full exposition to the nth degree for you to know all the pieces. But for now, just for what we are discussing, this one angel, he said to the Lord, he said to Mawla, no, I'm not going to submit. I'm not going to prostrate. And the Lord said, and why not? He says, well, you know what? You created this form, this body, out of clay. But you created me out of fire. What does that mean? There are three types of creation. There are many, but just for simplicity's sake, there is creation out of clay, which is the human being and in fact all species. There is creation out of light, which is all the angels. Angels are created out of light. And there is creation from fire, which is another form of light, if you like. And those who are created from that other form of light, which is fire, they are known as jinns. And jinns, they are not angels, they are another form of creation. And they can assume a human form, animal form, and they can assume a non-visible form and other things. Inshallah, when we speak about angels in the future, I'll be able to explain in a greater clarity. But Azazel says to the Lord, you created me out of fire, and fire is superior to clay and to earth, so I will not submit. Now, do you understand the symbolism behind this? The symbolism was Azazel, because of his pride and because of his ego, and I'll explain that in a second, he refused to give the song. Remember, the act of prostration was the song. He refused to give and submit the song. Then what happened? I think a lot of you know, if not all of you. Azazel was excommunicated. He was thrown out from God's kingdom as part of the believing and as part of the submitting angels. And he became what is known in theological, religious history, the symbol of the devil. Not just a symbol, but he is the devil in reality. And this Azazel plays many evil roles. Why all of that? Because he refused to submit to the divine will. The Creator said to him, submit yourself, prostrate yourself. Now, this notion of submission, prostration, goes back to the very beginning of the name and concept that Islam brought by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what was that? Islam has two meanings. It means peace and it means surrender, submission. By definition, it means he who submits himself freely out of his intellect and understanding. He who submits himself unconditionally, like those angels did. To whom? To the divine will. So the human will submits to the divine will. The result is, he who submits himself to the divine will gains the perfect peace. It's a spiritual concept. Now you can see right from the root of the word Islam, because this word Islam does not just mean peace and surrender, it also means safety, it also means greetings, it also means salvation. And the whole notion of prostration is linked to the notion of this salvation. So now, I hope I haven't lost you, but just following this narrative to explain to you why amanat or dasant is so important. So going back there to that primordial time before creation. So when Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made this prostration as his dasant, he gave dasant, guess what happened? Maula Ali himself, Maula Bapa in his Nurani form, he manifested himself in the form of this Adam that I have just explained. And what? And the whole cosmos, the whole creation became stable. It was in balance. And this creation that exists today, of which we are in it, we are on Earth. Our Earth is part of the solar system part of this galaxy, the galaxy part of many greater systems of galaxy and so on. All of this, as we speak, as I speak to you to this very second, every second that this creation exists is maintained, sustained, vitalized, renovated by Mola Bapa himself through his Nur. Please say Salwa. This is why in many of our Ginans and Farmans, and I give you one quotation, it is in 1946, in Madagascar, that Hazrat Imam Sultan Muhammad alayhi salam asked the Jamaat, do you know what is the cause of creation? And the Imam himself answers and says, the cause of creation is the Imam. And if the Imam so wishes, if the Imam so desires, in a blink of an eye, he can destroy this creation and he can recreate one. And that farman that he made in 1946 had a relationship with Dasant. That's why I'm quoting it. Look at the notion of creation in Dasant. Same correlation. So, when creation came into existence and it was stabilized, then the spiritual evolution of all the souls that came from the ALWAAZ, the ocean of souls, those souls from dimension to dimension to dimension eventually ended up in the physical plane here on earth. The earth being physical, the earth being the center where his greatest creation was to exist. But that's another story. And I don't want to divert because of time, and also simply to make you understand, this whole creation came into being for the salvation of the souls of those who did not make it. So, that being said, remember this key point, the whole creation came into being for the salvation of the souls of those who did not make it. And remember the purpose of creation. According to Ismaili Tariqah, the whole purpose of all the revelation that came into this planet, 124,000 prophets, 104 books, the purpose of creation itself was to make known to the whole of humanity, where is this Nur? Where is this Nur that Allah says that He is? This Nur is the manifestation of the Holy Imamat, please say Salah. And the first manifestation physically revealed, it was there all the time, remember, but revealed physically for humanity. It was the first beloved Imam, Mullah Murtaza Ali alayhi salam. And then from there on, the whole cycle of Imamat began, and all the Imams bear the same Nur of Allah. And needless to remind you, if you are seeking guidance for your salvation, then what has the Imam said? I have come here for the salvation of your soul. Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah said that. Maulana Hazar Imam on December 13, 1964, what did he say? Through your Imam's immense love and affection for his spiritual children, his Nur has indicated to you where and in which direction to turn so as to obtain spiritual and worldly satisfaction, unquote. I apologize, I'm just quoting you all these stray sentences because I don't want to overstep too much with time. Actually, I have, but I need to come to some conclusion to this. But the point I'm trying to make to you with this farman will come to light in a second. So now coming back to the foundation of this prism, you know where the sun came from. It came from pre-creation time. It existed there. That was the law. That was the rule. That was the basis of the whole creation. In fact, the sun is the principle of cosmic equilibrium. That's why I call this the cosmic prism of the intellect. Let me please repeat that. The sun, or Mali Wajbab, or if you want the Quranic terms, Zakat, Khums, or Ushra Allah. This concept and foundation aspect of every faith from pre-creation time till today, it is the cosmic balance, cosmic equilibrium of the whole creation. That's why if you remove this foundation, this is the bottom part of this prism, the whole thing collapses. If you remove the sun, if you remove Mali Wajbab, if you remove what Christian call tithe, what in the subcontinent they call dashans, and many other names are used, if you remove that, the whole creation will collapse. That's why it is a foundation. That's what foundation implies. And it is not something for this world. It has come from the transcendent realm, from pre-creation. And it has come to this manifest world. So now what is the relationship here? So look, if you ask yourself, what is the proof? What is the proof that I love my Imam and I have submitted myself for the love and devotion to the Imam, and I accept the walayat and vilayat of the Imam as I have explained? What is the proof? No. Words are not sufficient. No. Words, anybody can say anything. Words are not sufficient. Do you know what the Quran says? The Quran says, this is by the authority of the Imam, there is no other proof of your walayat than the return of the amanat to its owner. Let me explain. In the fifth part of our dua, we say, O ye who believe, look to whom this is addressed. O ye who believe, Ya ayyuhallazina amnu la taqnullah wa rasuluhu wa taqul amanatikum wa antum talmun. This is not addressed to just any person here and there. It's addressed to believers. And this part, as you know, is chapter 8, verse 27 of the Quran, and we say it in our dua. So it says, O you who believe, do not betray the Prophet, do not betray God, and do not betray your trust, this amanat, amanatikum. And you know the consequences. You know the consequences. Think about this. This is a verse in the Quran. So Allah Almighty is saying to all His creation, because remember, the Quran is a universal document. It is the last and final for the whole of humanity. Remember, declare to humanity what was revealed unto you. So this amanat is called trust, and it is your dasan. Who says that? The Imam says it. This is the meaning the Imam gives. Now, I am quite familiar with many other people who interpret trust in a different way. And you know what? It's okay into those contexts. But in this context, there is no questions about it when it comes to our tariqah. The Imam has given meaning to say when you are saying this part of dua, and when you are coming to this word amanatikum, means dasan. It means in the dua itself, there is dua and there is dasan. They are both integrated together. They are both intertwined together, like deen and dunya. They're intertwined together. Nobody is an excuse to say, oh, well, you know what? We don't speak about dasan anymore. Really? Really? When every religion has this concept on the face of this planet, when the whole concept is in the Quran itself in terms of zakat, ushur Allah, and khums, and in our tariqat, the foundation is there as dasan. It is there when we practice our faith. It is there when we are saying our dua, because the Imam says this amanat is the trust in your hand that belongs to the Imam. What of it? What of it? So first of all, very quickly, what is the meaning of trust? Trust means that you're a trustee. It means somebody gives you something, anything. Somebody gives you something to hold up for them, to hold it for them. Not for you to use it, not for you to give it away, not for you to do anything but to hold it on his or her behalf. And you are simply the holder of it. It means it doesn't belong to you. It never belonged to you, will never belong to you. You are simply the holder. And to whom this object belongs must be given back and must be returned in totality. Not half, not part, or nothing short of it. In other words, in practical terms, coming to our term, everything that we receive in terms of our sustenance, food, shelter, our earnings, and so on, all of it is symbolized in today's term by currency. Call it money. And whatever part of that money belongs to the divine, belongs to Mawla, must go back in the hands of the Imam. I'll come back to the second, but let me just finish up this explanation. So the whole notion of trust is that you have something that doesn't belong to you. It has to be given back to the original owner, to whom it belongs. That's why in this part of dua, this verse of the Holy Quran says, O ye who believe, remember, we are believers, right? O ye who believe, do not betray the Prophet and do not betray God. Look at the words, betrayal. Do not betray the amanat, meaning the dasan in your hand. You know the consequences. Out of our earning, according to Ismaili Tariqah, according to the holy guidance of the Imam, whatever we earn, 1/8, 12.5% is the portion of the dasan. And that dasan, and please hear me clearly, this portion of the dasan is remitted, in Jamaat Khana and Jamaat Khana only, in the hands of Mukhi Kamaria Sahib, Mukhyani Kamariani Sahiba. Let me say this to you. The song is not to be confused with charity. You can give charity. Alhamdulillah, there are many people who do. May Mawla bless them with barakat for such charities. But charity is voluntary. The song is not voluntary. Dua is not voluntary. Dua and the song are compulsory foundation for prayers and spiritual enlightenment in our tariqah, as it is in other faith in different ways. And the song, that portion that we call Mali Wajibat or the song, does not belong to us, does not belong to the individual. This was the agreement made by the Creator and His creation. Remember the act of submission that was the song? That this does not belong to you. So that the song must be returned. So how do you do that? When a person earns, I'm not going into details because it is not the time and it is not desirable to do so, but understand the principle. From whatever you earn, and you understand, it's not the first time you're listening about the song, you know it. But I'm simply emphasizing the importance in this context, which I'm coming to the conclusion just in a few minutes. That the song that you take out, which is the amanat of the imam in your hand, the song must be returned in Jamaat Khana, not Aga Khan Foundation, not Focus, not any other institution. Those institutions play their role in the way the imam has guided. But the song comes in Jamaat Khana, nowhere else. Nowhere else. It comes to Jamaat Khana. And there is a protocol that is set up in our tariqah, how this is done, and you can get yourself informed in your Jamaat by Jamaati Mukhi Kamariyas, Mukhyani Kamariyanis. They will explain it to you if you have any questions regarding the protocol of submission. But let me say this to you again, I re-emphasize. Sometimes people send a check to Aga Khan Foundation and say that's my dasam. No, it is not. No, it is not. Dasam means you bring it to Jamaat Khana in the hands of Jamaati Mukhi Kamariya Sahib, Mukhyani Kamariyani Sahiba. That's where it should end up, not anywhere else. And it should be in Jamaat Khana. So that is foundational as part of the protocol of remitting your dasam. Now, what else does dasam do? You know, we could speak about dasam for the next 2 hours and not exhaust it. But let me give you the key points now because I have exceeded my time and I hope that I can come to this conclusion very quickly. I have already said to you, dasam is the principle of cosmic equilibrium. I have explained to you that Azazil, out of his pride and ego, refused to give dasam and he was excommunicated. What do you think happens to a person in this life, right now, in the year 2020, as we speak, when they confuse dasam as anything else? Because remember, amanat means it is not your property. The property must be given back in the hands of God. It belongs to God. And in the Quran it is said, there is no greater test imposed upon the believer than the return of this amanat in the hands of God. I'm going to repeat this. The Holy Quran says, there is no greater test imposed upon the believer than the return of the amanat into God's hand. Whatever belongs to God, give it back to God in his hand. That hand of God, in our dua, we call it Yedullah. That hand of Allah is the hand of the Holy Imam, please say salawat. The very hand that is holding us, the very hand that blesses us, the very hand that comes on our shoulder when Mola gives his blessing. And it is that very hand that is the hands of Mukhi Kamaria Sahib, Mukhyani Kamariani Sahibas in Jamaat Khana, because they are appointed by the Imam. And in Jamaat Khana, when they receive your offerings, your dasan and everything else, that is the Yedullah in Jamaat Khana that's receiving your dasan, receiving everything that you perform in Jamaat Khana. So that has to be understood, and that has to be put into the context. Meaning, if an individual, let us hope for mistaken reason, did not understand the concept of the dasan, what happens? Like Azazel, his notion of false pride and ego will germinate. That will germinate and overtake him. And he will begin to think he is the master of his own being, and he's not. And he will begin to think that is his earning, it is his belonging, it belongs to him, and he should decide what he does. But you know what? You can decide on what belongs to you, by all means. But this amanat, this portion, this 1/8 portion, this 12.5% portion, that does not belong to you any more than government taxes belong to you. Will you ever make a claim that you are giving charity to the government when you call that government taxes? Will you dare make a claim that you are giving charity to the government? Come on. Make clear into your mind. Those are not charities. When you give taxes to the government, they are called taxes. And you're obligated. It's the law to give those taxes, in whichever way you look at it. So this amanat is a spiritual law of cosmic balance, sustenance, maintenance, and everything else in life. And when we submit our dasan, please understand this, when we submit our dasan out of love and affection and understanding, then what happens? Dasan becomes the foundation. Look at this pyramid at the bottom. This amanat, this dasan becomes the proof. Remember the word proof I said? This is the proof that you love your imam, that you are submitting to the guidance of the imam, that there is love and devotion in your heart for Hazar Imam, that you accept that Maula Bapa himself is the Nur of Allah. What is the proof? The proof is your dasan, this amanat. This amanat creates this channel. Now, if amanat is the foundation of your love, devotion for the imam, then this love and devotion for the imam takes you to the next upper segment, and it says that is your iman. That is your iman, meaning your faith. Remember, faith is nothing but love in the heart for the imam, and the proof of the love of the heart from the imam is your dasan. And there's one thing I have to say as we are getting to the level of the intellect. Look at this picture here. Of course, it's just a picture. This brilliant 1,000 suns, infinite suns that shines, that represents the nur of the divine intellect, connect itself to the human intellect here. But guess what? That connection is only made because the amanat is there, the dasan is there. Because of dasan, there is love, submission for the imam. This love, this iman is the foundation of this akal. So akal becomes illuminated. Nur comes into your akal. There is divine light into your akal because of this dasan, because of giving, submitting, and returning the amanat. And the day this amanat is not there anymore, like Azazel refused to do. Not only this amanat is gone, your love, devotion, submission, and bayat to the Imam is broken, and your iman, your faith, becomes darkness. Remember that the intellect malfunctions because of amanat. No amanat, meaning malfunction of the intellect. And where is malfunction of the intellect, you are dead. You are dead, you're finished. When this part of your being begins to really malfunction, many bad things happens to a human being. Needless to say, you understand it. You understand it. Why do you think the human brain is situated in the upper segment of our body, just like the intellect into this pyramid? Because that tells you that is the divine connection. That is the connection with the divine intellect. It is uppermost. It is uppermost. And the human being is upstanding. No other creature on the surface of this earth is upstanding like the human being. You know, plants, when you see plants and trees, where they are planted, it's reversed. The head is down in the ground, the roots are down in the ground, and the feet, so to speak, are up. For the human being, the feet are on the ground, and the brain is as in the upstanding posture of the human being, standing up. So, there are so many other pieces to be added, but simply now I have to conclude for everyone's benefit. So, this cosmic prism of the intellect has to do with ensuring that we understand how everything comes together in the practice of our tariqah that is foundational. So you begin with the song. The song creates love and submission and prostration and acceptance and bayat and all those concepts in the heart of the believer here. That is the walaya, through the song. Because that is the proof, remember. This is the proof. And when you have that concept of walayat, your iman, your faith, nobody will be able to touch your faith. Nobody will be able to push you around and question your faith. You are going to say, my faith in my Imam is firm, like the root of a tree that will not shake it. And because of my Iman, which is love in the heart for the Imam, I will also succeed in my spiritual practice, in my ibadah. And this Iman is the foundation. This love for my Imam is the foundation of my intellect. Why? Because through the concept of amanat, the sound brings divine illumination. That is the thing. The sound brings light into the practice of your faith. The sound brings light into our tariqah practices. Nothing is valid without the sound. Nothing. Even the du'as and the tasbihs that we do, they eventually collapse if there is no the sound. I want to say this thing to you straightforwardly, so it may not create any confusion to think that you may say, well, there is a compromise. There is no compromise. This is it. This is it. Be clean and clear in your dasam. Be clean and understanding in your dasam. Use your illuminated intellect to know your dasam is the foundation. And it is that which keeps you connected. Connected to what? Connected to your Imam. It's like you being, if you like, an instrument, and you plug yourself into his energy, which is this point. Now, if you unplug yourself, what happens? Meaning, you remove the part of amanat of the sound, everything collapses. That is why I repeat to you, it is said in the Quran, there is no greater test imposed upon a believer than the return of amanat in the hands of God. And I have explained to you That hand is Mola Bapa's hand, and that hand in our Jomat Khana is the hands of Mukhi Kamariya Sahib, Mukyani Kamariya Sahib. So here we are, in as short as possible, the relationship between divine intellect, human intellect, between Iman, faith, between Walayat, Imamat, and our Dason, Amanat. So I'm going to stop here. And if anyone would like further clarification, I'm happy to remain for a few more minutes. And if you have any question regarding this, I'm happy to try to answer it if I can.
Can I ask a quick question, please? You said about the song that it should be given to Jamati Mukikamya side.
Yes.
Is it only Jamati Mukikamya side?
Well, when you are in Jamaat Khana, there may be other officers appointed by Mukhi Kamariya to be sitting by their sides. You can give it to them. Or if it happens, let's say hypothetically, okay, hypothetically, that there is a certain majlis hall, but you didn't come to Jamaat Khana, but you arrive at the time of the majlis and you have the song with you. You have two options. You can go to Jamaati Mukhi Kamariyas who are there and give it to them. Or if you go to say your dua, you can give it to the Mandli Mukhi Kamariyas too who are there. But essentially, the song is given in Jamaat Khana into the hands of Mukhi Kamariya Sahib, Mukyani Kamariya Sahib.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hassam, for this illuminating and enlightening presentation. We are forever grateful to you to be able to share this virtual space and learn so much in depth. I thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of all the participants for your time, for sharing your knowledge, and I would like to offer dua for you and your family. May Mawla give you immense barakat.
Ameen.
May Mawla always shower his choicest blessings upon you.
Ameen.
And may Mawla always give you the motivation and the inspiration to share these precious jewels and these treasures with who are forever thirsting for the knowledge that you so nicely impart to us. Thank you very much.
Ameen.